Loyalty Podcast fans. Hey guys, it's Danny here. Really excited to be back with you guys today. Just really, again, as I do every episode, I really want to just thank everybody for your support, for coming on and sharing stories, because every story that's shared really inspires yet another person who wants to come forward and speak their truth. And I think that there's so much power in the numbers that we are providing, because when we were in an organization like Worldwide, or we were part of something like Amway, our voices were silenced. So I think it's incredibly important that people like us have the opportunity to continue speaking. So if that doesn't give you guys a little bit of an insight, we are going to be talking about Amway, Worldwide Dream Builders, probably going to talk at some point about URA, LTD, Brit Worldwide, all of the things, right? So with that, of course, I have to give the disclaimer that I'm not trying to defame anybody. Okay. My guest is not here to defame anybody. We are here to speak on personal experiences and personal opinions. Okay. Everybody's name that we will be discussing today has been changed, including my guest herself. She is coming on here totally anonymous. So I just want to reiterate, don't sue me. Okay. I'm not here to defame anybody. If you guys want to join these organizations, like, hey, if you're an adult, make your own decisions. I would, however, highly recommend just listen to some of these stories, hear them out, and maybe choose to make a different decision. But I am choosing not to influence you. Don't join. Anyways, so with that being said, you guys, I have Gwen. Gwen, thank you so much for reaching out and wanting to come on and share your story.
Yes, thank you for having me, Danny.
I'm really excited because you are like probably the most recent person that I've spoken to who's left, the most recent. As
Mhm.
of now, how long have you been out?
Officially, I resigned from my worldwide subscriptions in May, and that still takes a month to be officially out, you know? So my apps finally logged me out, I guess about a month ago, not even.
Wow. So just so fresh into the real world. How is the real world looking for you so far?
I mean, it's interesting because I think my fade was a bit of a slow fade.
Yeah.
So I felt like maybe around maybe the holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving is when the slow fade was happening. So, but I think I didn't come to a realization that this was not okay, or that worldwide was not a good thing until probably May, June.
Wow.
So yeah, so I've just been in that rabbit hole of doing my research now and listening to podcasts like yours, and being able to have my eyes open to really what this was and what happened.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot to take in too. I mean, it just feels like a never ending rabbit hole of continuous, like, oh, I didn't know that. Like figuring out that
Mhm.
there's payment for the upline for tools, memberships, things like that. Were you aware of that when you were still involved?
No.
That's so frustrating and infuriating to hear. And unfortunately, like I was the same way. But I feel like everybody that I've spoken to, anybody who did know, it's because somebody accidentally slipped up. Like there was never any intentional conversation. It was always like, oh, there's a diamond on stage who said something, or I was in a meeting that they mentioned something
Right.
really, really briefly.
Are you waiting
But
for the day where someone's like, I knew from day one, like they told me during the process that I were also going to be involved in here.
so okay, so speaking of the process and getting involved in
Mhm.
worldwide altogether, so you were in for 4 years, right?
Technically, I mean, if you want to count to like when my subscriptions, the day I got launched, it was more than 4 years because I launched
Wow.
in January of 2020.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So how did you get involved? Like how did you hear about Worldwide and Amway and get sucked into a coffee date with these people?
So I want to preface my story by actually kind of going back, almost like back in time, because I've been reflecting on what led me to this point, and it kind of starts with, I think, just when I was in college in a way. So I'm going to try to be really concise about that. Just upon reflection, so when I was a sophomore in college, I that was when I realized I wanted to declare my major as psychology. And then from that point, I realized that I really wanted to work with couples. I wanted to be a couples therapist. And that never really changed. Like I always like that was something I wanted to do. I think I was open perhaps to different things, but that was always just that never really left that thought. And so I graduated and then I found a graduate program and then I started my graduate studies in clinical social work. But the interesting thing with that was I think when I was in graduate school, I was still kind of young and immature. And I think some of the internships I was placed in were not really what I want to do. And so there's a whole part of social work that I don't like and that it's not something I would ever want to do. But because you can go clinical and be a therapist as a social worker, that was always what I wanted. And I think what I was not feeling with the industry was the 9 to 5 type of lifestyle. I was starting to just feel like I don't like this. I really don't like this. And in graduate school, I also got really into fitness. And Instagram at the time was kind of in its infancy because I started graduate school in 2014 and that was a 2-year program. And Instagram was still like fairly young. Like the term influencer, I don't even know if that was a thing yet. So I ended up finding this program and this girl who was exactly my age to the T, she basically became a sensation on accident because she had a boyfriend who was like, you should create this fitness program. You'd be really good at it. And she's like, I don't think this is going to work. He's like, let's just try it. And then now she's a millionaire and she's doing what she loves. And like, I'm seeing this and she got so successful that like she would go touring around the world and like do boot camps in different cities. And her fans would come and be like, you changed my life, and so, and there was a whole community on Instagram of people who were really into her program. And I just thought, wow, she's changing lives. Like these women, they're so inspired by her and she's just doing what she loves every single day. And she doesn't have to go to an office. And that always like stayed in my brain. Like I want to create a life kind of like that, not necessarily doing what she does, but somehow have freedom.
Yeah.
And that always just stuck. So then I graduated from school and started as an independent contractor. So it's kind of like make your own schedule. So you're not like really a 9 to 5, but you kind of still are because you got to bust your butt and like travel all over the city and whatnot. And I was living in Baltimore and I was happy in that year, but I was just kind of like, is this all there is to life? Like, just this rat race, and is my life just going to look like this and then look at my coworkers and be like, I'm just going to look like you in 10 years. Like, I don't know. I just felt like so average. And if I would have had the brain that I have now, I would have thought to myself, and maybe this is one thing I did learn from Worldwide, was go look for someone who has the results you want. So my brain today would have been like, oh, I should call my professor who was my couples therapist professor, basically, who has his own practice. And I should just call him and ask him to tell me what I should do.
Yeah.
But I didn't do that. So I just felt like maybe I don't want to be in this industry anymore. And so then I was like 26 and I was like, you know what, maybe I just need to like take a risk in life. And I don't even think I want to be in Baltimore. So I ended up moving to San Diego in 2018. So now I'm 27 and I'm like, I'm just going to figure things out. And like, maybe I'll create a business where it's like mental health blended with fitness because I love fitness. So I like went through this whole trial and error living in San Diego of like getting my personal training certification and trying to create a business. And then I ended up in this health coaching program. So it was not an MLM. It was just a woman who was a successful health coach. And so she created a program where you pay her a fee for 6-month course on how do you actually create a business as a health coach. And I completely floundered in that because I didn't have a niche. So it's like a whole thing. And like, I don't know, like my husband kind of feels like she took advantage of me, but I don't really know, like whatever. But in that program, I remember she also did a money mindset segment. And I think that what she was teaching us kind of primed me for to be open to the worldwide mindset. If you are not accepting money into your life, like and she was very spiritual, like it's your chakras and blah, blah, blah. And it's not good for you. And if you want to shake and then you have this, you're at a juice bar and you have a $12 juice that's sitting right in front of you. It's calling your name. But then when you see that it's $12, you just feel like closed off, like I can't spend that money. She's like, why should you feel like you shouldn't have that? And so I was kind of she was opening my mind to like, maybe maybe you can be rich. And she
Yeah.
even had us like read the book, I think like The Science of Getting Rich. So, and then maybe Think and Grow Rich too, which she was like recommending.
Oh yeah, yes.
So I'm floundering in this program and I'm like about to have a nervous breakdown. I feel like at some point, because I was like struggling in San Diego on top of it, like bartending my butt off and like, it was just hard there. California is just hard. So, okay. So I meet my mentor. No, I meet my sponsor at the gym. We have a really great connection. I don't know that he has anything for me. He didn't drop the message. He just like shared and I was positive. I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. And he got my info and he's like, let's get coffee soon. I was like, yeah, I'll be down. But I didn't know he had anything for me. So I'm kind of like, he's trying to set up something with me. And I'm like, look, I'm really overwhelmed. Like, I hope so soon. But like, I'm not trying to like set up coffee with you next week kind of thing. So
Yeah.
then one night, I think maybe it was like end of September, in 2019, this is 2019, I have a coaching call with my little health coaching group, and this woman like hired a new coach on. She was saying the things that she was saying was making no sense that night. She was like, first you got to chunk it down, then you got to break it down, then you got to build it back up. And we're like, what the hell? Like, what are you saying to me right now? Like, I'm paying $5,000 for this program and you're making no sense. So I get off that call just so like frustrated and like, where's my life going? So I go to the gym and I'm just like so upset and stressed. And I see my sponsor and something in my heart was just like, you need to go speak to him. And so I just like walk up to him and he's like, what's up, Gwen? I'm like, hey, like, how are you? And he's like, are you okay? Because if I'm not okay, you just know.
Right.
So I was like, honestly, I'm not like, I just feel like I'm in a place and I don't see the light at the end of the tunnel and I'm just so overwhelmed right now. And he's like, do you want a hug? And I was like, no, because I'm gonna cry, so don't hug me. And he's like, okay, well, do you want to talk about it? And I was like, you know what? Yeah, like you just seem like the kind of person who has their stuff together. And it'd be cool to talk to you. I just thought he was so smart for some reason. He just seemed smart because the things that he said were things that none of my friends were saying about life.
Yeah.
But I felt what he was, I agreed with a lot of things he said at the time. So he's like, let's get coffee Tuesday, 1:00, this place. I'm like, all right, let's do it. But I just think I'm just going to have a nice coffee meet with someone who's really smart. And maybe I could share with him I thought I would just share with him, this is what I'm trying to build. And maybe he was just so brilliant that he could give me some words of wisdom. That was honestly what I thought. And to preface also, like my sponsor's a great person. He left a year after and I was so mad at him when he left. And I feel bad that I was so mad at him. But so yeah, like we go into a coffee meet and I shared my whole story with him. And then he's like, so, Gwen, why are you here? And I'm like, what? And he's like, why are you here? And I was like, because I thought you were really smart and maybe, you can give me some wisdom. And then he kind of was just like, he does the bait and switch, but I'm okay with it kind of thing.
Right.
Some people would not be, but he was just like, I remember him just being so enthusiastic and being like, what if I told you that there was a system that has been proven over and over and over again to produce result? And like, I remember him asking me how much money I would love to make, like what would be my 10 lifestyle. And I think I was like, I don't know, like $100,000 a year, like that'd be cool. Or like even 80K would be cool. And he was like, why that? Why not 1 million? And I'm sorry, like, that's not okay to say. You should not say that. You should not say that. But I remember being like, oh, I don't know. He gave me the book of the business of 21st century. And I remember just like leaving that meeting being like, thank you so much. Like I feel like I have so much hope now. Like I was one of the people that you wanted. Like, you know what I mean? Like I was just like, I was drooling over everything. So I read the book. I told him I read it in 3 weeks and he was like, no. Like it needs to be like 5 days max. I was like, oh, okay. And I didn't know what network marketing was. So I didn't like have a negative view. I had no biases towards anything. So yeah. So I go to my first meeting with the boss lady of my organization, who we're going to call Connie. I don't know. I mean, he made it really hard for me. I mean, I had to really prove myself in my process to be able to earn an offer. And I definitely did have some like I could be tough sometimes because I would just ask him all these questions. Like, why is it that Connie said this story at her meeting, but then like I heard that same thing be said in an audio and it was a personal story. So why did she have the same personal story as so-and-so? I asked all kinds of questions, but I think what helped was his mentor at the time, his platinum, actually was like really, really great at building trust. Cause I think he actually was a good person. Yeah. And so I think that really helped. And like, I believe they both were actually good people who were just indoctrinated. Like, I think if I were to talk to my sponsor now about the process he put me through, he'd be like, oh my gosh, like, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
He even said like back then, they were not emphasizing sales. So he even said to me, like, yeah, we don't like to make this a big sales thing because then it's like a job. So like if you could just even have like 2 to 5 clients, that would be good. It's so easy.
Wow.
I would have known that that means pyramid scheme. You're telling me it's not sales. Yes, it is. That's the whole point of what makes this legitimate, is that it's a sales business. You should not be telling
Yeah.
people this is not sales. And that's not even his fault. He was taught that.
Yes.
He never even hit Eagle, my sponsor. So
And that's exactly right. They had, that's all they did was, I remember the same thing. This is not sales. If you want sales, you go back to your job. Like, this is not what we do. We're in the people business.
yeah,
And
we don't say that now, but
right, right. I have to say that I love your mindset and how you were really just like, you knew what you wanted. Like, you wanted more than what you had, but there was still kind of that confusion of like, how do I get there? So you're absolutely right when you say that that's the pride, that's what they want. But that's not a bad mentality to have either, because it shows that you're goal oriented. And I think that's such a great place to be anyways. But cool, man, they love that. They thrive. If you tell them that you are just the slightest bit interested in something out of the ordinary.
yeah, I'm way too trusting. And that's something I'm working on, and like something I reflect with my husband is I'm too trusting of a person. And so I need to be a little more guarded. I could use a little bit of that.
Right. And they do such a good job at becoming like your best friend. I mean, you barely knew this guy, but something in his aura, and I mean, it sounds like he's a good person anyways, but at the time when he was just prospecting you, it's something about his aura was like, he had something about him that made him seem a step above the average person, and by all accounts somebody you would want to talk to. And then, of course, when you start talking to them, they start talking about the people that they know. And it just seems like this really good, positive, like whole organization. Speaking of organization, when during the process did you actually find out that it was Amway and Worldwide?
The third meeting, because it was, yeah, at the board plan.
Got it.
Never
Got
had
it.
one in my life.
Still not straight away, which I love that it was the third meeting. Don't get me wrong. There was a period of time where people didn't know for like 2 months. Now, of course, I don't know what time period like the third meeting was for you. Looking back, like if you had known what it was, even after the second meeting, would you have continued forward with him?
Like if he would have been like, this is what I actually do every day.
Yeah.
Like if people would actually say like what you do in the business, like you have to ask friends and family to be clients, and you buy products from yourself, and you go out and you talk to random people. No.
Right. I'm right there with you. I really am. But they don't. And even when you're in business, they still use terms like you got to grind hard, you got to run. What does that actually mean? It means that you're spending every waking hour talking to people, which they're never upfront about at any point in time during the process. And even in the board plans too, there's just so much, there's just so much ambiguity when it comes to this whole process. But obviously, like me, like everybody else that we've talked to, you earned this offer into partnership. And was there anybody in your personal life that you had talked to about this that had anything to say about it, whether positive or negative?
Oh yeah. Most people were negative. I even talked to a financial advisor, and he was like, yeah, like don't do that.
Wait, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. I've never heard anybody say that, because they always tell you, right? Like, even if financial advisors would say this is a good idea, but you spoke with one and they said that was a bad idea.
Yeah, like he said, it's one of those things where people at the top are going to make the most and the people at the bottom not so much. He's like, you could just invest in this and this, and like, but I was trying to find my way. So I just was like, I don't like that answer. And then the two people that were positive were girlfriends of mine who were actually building their own businesses, like not MLM, but just, entrepreneurial minded kind of girls. And they were the ones that were supportive of me.
Right. Well, which I'm sure that was really nice to have at least a couple of people that were in your corner, were able to kind of see what you were seeing. I do feel like that's a huge positive thing. It's just so good anyways. I feel like even in regular, like everyday life, just people who kind of see what you see. I love that. So your first, like, I guess, first few months in partnership, what did that look like for you? Because from my understanding, you ended up leaving the area that you were in.
Yeah. So, because my mom had gotten sick, and I'm from New York, right? So she's in New York. So I freaked out and was like, I got to go. I got to go back to to the East Coast. And so I go back right December of 2019. I go back to the East Coast, and obviously COVID happened. So I took a while for me to launch because I didn't launch until January 2020. I told them I want to wait until after the holidays. No, like I want to enjoy the holidays. I want to go home be with my family. I'll launch after because I know they were probably scared they'd lose me.
Yeah.
But and my parents were like they didn't freak out. I wouldn't tell them until I got home about it because I just had a feeling that they were going to be negative. And they were like, "Oh, Sydney, look, we had an Amway business in the 90s. Like, do you remember our water? Remember the water purifier at the sink? Remember that little thingy that was Amway?" And I was like, "Oh, really?" And like, yeah, like we did it for a little bit, but like, like we got burned. It wasn't. And I was trying to explain, well, this is different. Like this is with worldwide, and da 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 da. I'm trying to explain it, and they didn't freak out because I don't think they had a horrific experience. It was just short lived. And I tried to tell them it wasn't sales, and they were like, "When? Like, what do you mean it's not sales? That's what that business is." I'm like, "No, it's not." Like they were just like, "Hello, like, what do you mean?" So
Right.
anyway, so I launched in January, and on one hand, I remember my first couple like meetings with my upline platinum and my original upline platinum and my sponsor and like doing the budget session. And I remember my platinum saying, because I was like, "Oh yeah, and this is my Roth IRA." And I remember him saying, "So with this business, like technically don't need a Roth or 401k, but we'll come back to that. It's not something we should cover right now." So I was like, "Okay." And I remember just being like, what? And he's just like, "We don't have to cover that right now." I was like, "Okay." And he was good because he was like, "Hey, look, I'm not going to try to make you switch your point of purchase right now. Like, just let's do like what you can do right now." That made me feel like I could trust them more because he was like, "Let's go at a pace that's good for you and start here." So I think I started only spending like $300 a month on Ditto, which when you say only, it's like still a lot. But
Yeah.
yeah, and then I just was like I was really good with Kate because I was all about the mentorship. That was like I felt so like they were my safety net in life all of a sudden. So I would Kate every day. I was all about building the relationship. And then COVID happened and it was New York. So it was like it was rough. It was rough out
I
there.
bet.
So I was just trying to do the best I could, but like and I still like somehow would meet people here and there, but I don't even know how I did it because everything was shut down. So I don't even know. Like, good for me, I guess.
I bet, yeah. Oh man, I can't even imagine what COVID would have been like in New York. I mean, and a lot of people just they rely on like foot traffic, right? Like they walk everywhere and for things to be shut down. I'm sure in New York, especially, that is very intense. I mean, I was in Portland, which is by no means like the worst place to be in the world, honestly.
Yeah.
But and the way that they had like even the fact that there was an expectation to meet people during COVID, I'm always kind of baffled by that. Just because I've heard a lot of different stories from other organizations and other tools businesses altogether, where a lot of them, everybody was basically being told to like prospect on LinkedIn, like get so many
No.
emails out. Like, was that ever taught to you guys?
No, I mean, and look, I had my upline was in San Diego. They're like, "Go to the beach, go." And I'm like, "You don't listen to me." Like, I would go to the park where I'm from, and it was all like foreigners at the park. I couldn't even like communicate with them. They weren't speaking English. So it's like New Yorkers are a different breed, okay? Like, and I remember I would seriously ride the train. I'd be like, seriously riding the train, trying to make conversation with people on the train, like going to another borough of New York City, like try to figure something out. But it was 2020 was rough. But I just held on because for me, I felt like they were the ones keeping me positive. That's how I
Yeah.
felt about it. I was like,
Oh,
if I didn't have, I thought in my head, if I didn't have this, I don't know what, I would probably just feel hopeless.
right.
That's how I felt at the time.
Wow. But and that's a good thing though, because COVID really did a number on people, and holding on to hope, even if it was worldwide at the time, like that's a big thing. And I'm sure for a lot of people who were maybe still new and kind of within that honeymoon phase of
Different
worldwide.
mindset. Different mindset if you were new versus if you'd been in and then COVID hit. Those are the ones that were like, "I'm leaving."
Right, exactly. And I think that hope probably kept a lot of people alive. I know that during COVID there was just so many hardships and mental health was such a big thing. And to have something to plug into like that, I do think
Mm.
really good thing, especially for anybody who
Yeah.
was new and hadn't seen what they had seen yet. But then again, like you said, like there are people who had been in for a while and COVID just blew everything wide open for them. But like I said, that's such a good thing for you during that time. When is it like that you were finally able to, I guess, move forward with the business? Like, was it once things started to open up? Did you ever go back to San Diego?
So I guess I'm gonna answer that question, but I'll go chronologically. Like,
That's okay.
so in August of 2020, my original platinum stepped away because he was going through something very serious in his life. And which I later found out speaking to him that our overall upline were like not he wasn't feeling validated at all
Wow.
by what he was going through, that he needed to step away, he needed to take care of himself. So that ends up, I didn't know that right out the gate because they wouldn't really share openly what was going on. He steps away. So then his platinum, we're gonna call him Brandon, steps in to mentor me. And that was like definitely interesting because at this point I'm like, I guess 6 or 7 months in, so there's a little bit more trust built with Worldwide. And I remember, like, I don't remember why I catered him this. I was just trying to build a relationship now with Brandon because I got to build a relationship with a new mentor. And I think I listened to some type of audio where it was, I don't know what it was, but it compelled me to send a reflection on couples building together. And I was in a relationship at the time with someone else. And I remember saying, I think it's great that couples build this together, but I definitely don't feel that it's necessary to do that. And I don't think couples should feel like they have to. He came back and was like, I mean, Gwen, you can do that, but it's going to be very hard for you to do that. And then so our like boss lady of our organization, she's a married woman that builds single, and we're going to call her Connie. And he was saying, Connie says she wouldn't wish her like that life on her worst nightmare. The fact that her husband will build with her. She never said that though, like openly to like an organization, but that's what he said. Like, just so you know, that's like really how she feels. And so that really freaked me out. And I internalized that because I'm the kind of person I consider myself very coachable. Like if I have like I've had fitness health coaches in the past, and I'm like, when I'm all about it, like I do exactly what you tell me to do because I
Yeah.
want the results. So I'm good at being submissive. I'd like to think I'm not super stubborn. So I like that planted a seed in my head for sure that like I can't do this. I can't really be successful in this if I'm not thinking the way Brandon's thinking, or like, and then of course, like, I don't know if you remember the audio from that single girl Emerald that's in Vegas,
Yep.
and she's in the organization of the guy who talks really fast, and she's Indian.
Yeah.
But her whole story about like breaking up with that boyfriend and like doing this single because he didn't want the diamond lifestyle and she did. And so I was like, oh my god, like feeling like if I resist any of that, like I'm not going to be successful.
Right.
Not
Right.
good. Not good at all. And that's a huge red flag in hindsight, because if a business is so good and so strong, it shouldn't need a couple to do together to stand on its own 2 feet. I
Right.
don't know any real estate agents who in their brokerage feel like their wife or their husband has to do it with them for them,
Yeah.
and
Good
they're
point.
they're still successful. So why would it be so hard for a single to build this on their own? Why is it such a big deal?
Yeah. That's
Well,
a
because
fantastic point.
right. Well, now we don't have a fully indoctrinated couple. Like that's probably, that's really why. And because it consumes your entire life.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I mean, even now, like the single that you're talking about, the Emerald. From my understanding, she went and got married, and then the whole narrative has since changed that her husband was like a huge part of this, and that she built it for her future husband, and just a lot of it weighs now on this guy who wasn't even around for a good portion of her building this business as a single. And that's really infuriating. I think just some like you, I was single when I was in, I had dated somebody and then the business broke us up, which in hindsight is fine. I always say, I call him Luke. I always try to say anytime I bring him up, he is not that person. I was the toxic one. This poor guy, I hope he's living his best life. Like we should have never been together. Like it's a really good thing, I think, for him that this business did that. So, Luke, if you ever hear this, I'm so sorry. You're not bad. But I always listened to her audio and felt like, oh, I feel empowered. Or the lady who, she was married and her husband owned a construction company, but she
Yeah.
built it single. That was another one that was heavily praised. But
Yeah.
then you have I was coached the same way that you were, where it's like, oh, but you don't want to have to build it like that. Like they can praise these almost like token individuals, but then when it comes down to it in like private council sessions were being told the opposite, like, hey, like, yes, you want to look at these powerful women, but you don't want to do it like that. You need a husband. And it's like, respectfully, I don't fucking want a husband who has, like, I don't want to need a husband for that.
Right.
And it was, I think I really wanted to be married so bad as a result of that organization. But like looking back, I'm like, I'm really, really glad I didn't find my like diamond husband. But did that, when they told you that, was there some discouraging aspects to that? Like, did that ever kind of almost change what you wanted for you?
Yes, but I feel similarly to you where like I mean that relationship even if I never got into worldwide we both would have realized like we were not right for each other anyway. So that's okay and he's not a bad person but like, it just we weren't it wasn't going to work long term. So like that's okay. But it definitely made me think like to a degree like maybe I have to be with someone who's in worldwide or maybe that's like and that whole thing too with like the way they try to control like dating and like they tell you if you do date that you shouldn't go if you meet someone and they ask you on a date you shouldn't just go on a date, right? Like you should be like, hey, we first need to get coffee and talk about some things first, and basically they're asking you to take them through a process. I That was always the weirdest thing to me. I always thought that was so strange because eventually I did break up with that person and then I was a good truly 100% single building the business, right? But that was always the weirdest thing to me. Like I couldn't, I would try to reason and make sense of it, but I couldn't. And I was confused because on one hand I thought, well, I'm supposed to want someone who wants this, but like this is so weird. But anyway. And that's also where it gets into that same mentor, Brandon. I remember my first council session with him and I was so excited because I looked up to, I thought he was so cool. And then I remember just like leaving that conversation feeling so uncomfortable. And I didn't know why, but I just felt like so not, I don't want to say not safe, but like I couldn't really be myself. Like I felt like he was just like pressing into my life in ways that he had no business pressing into it.
Yeah.
Like my personal life and just like beating it all up and like ripping it up and like it was uncomfortable. And then not to mention he was very aggressive about like, why do you have a was him, why do you have a 401k, why do you have a Roth? Oh, because I practical reasons, right? So he's like, do you think the crown guy has a Roth? So we're going to compare me, a girl who's got nothing to show for in the business right now, you want to compare how I should make financial decisions to the crown guy? And at the time I was just like, oh, I guess if I'm really serious about this, I should, think like I'm already rich, right? Like if
Yes.
that's
That's how
really
they
my
teach you.
plan. Yeah. So then I feel like, well, and if I don't think like that, then I'm already not believing. And if I don't believe, I'm not going to. So it's like that whole mind, controller, like just you're so confused. So and just in hindsight, that's just so not okay.
Yeah.
That is you, and that's dangerous for them to say that.
Very. I mean, did
Like
they ever show you their finances? Like,
I
these are
never saw
people,
the
there's no,
P&Ls. I never saw that.
exactly. There's no checks and balances too, which is sad because these people were probably also broke as hell, trying to get you to give up like your safety net, which honestly, the fact that you had those things is fantastic. I always wish when I was like younger, that I would have started something like that. But the fact, it just, oh God, these aren't
I did
professionals.
cancel it, Danny. Like I did.
Oh gosh,
Cancel it for a
you
period of
didn't. I'm so
time.
sorry.
Yeah. And then it took me a while to do it. It took me until maybe like the spring of 2021. But when I did, my mom somehow figured it out. I don't know how she found out this day. But I remember
Wow.
she should have flipped out way harder because I remember her being like, who told you to do that? Like, Gwen, who told you to do that? And because she like, I wish she would have like sat me down and been like, these people are not okay. Like I wish, but as opinionated and headstrong as my mother is, she wants her children to have the freedom to make their own decisions. And I can't, man, like I respect her so much, but also I'm like, Mom, I think that should have been an exception. And I told my baby boomer platinums that are above Brandon about that. Like she found out and they should have been like, oh, well, maybe you should reactivate that. But instead they're like, how do you think she found out? So it's just like, why are you all so just, why don't any of you like have any common sense anymore? It's like, again, I guess because you're so friggin' indoctrinated, but like, come on, people. Anyways, so the end of 2020, I just like get this burst of energy in December and I say, come hell or high water, I'm going to figure out how to get 10 people through a process. And somehow I do it by like tapping into a lot of my warm market. So when I did that, that was like, I felt like I could conquer the world. Like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to kick, I'm going to kick ass. Like, I'm going to be like the girl from Vegas. Like, I'm going to just watch me. So 2021 was probably really like my big honeymoon season where I was like so into it. Like, I was in love with the audios, like just because honestly, some of these audios were like beautiful. Like they made it
They
sound
really
so
were.
good. Some of the stories, like you're just like these people, how could they not be good people? Like look at the way they speak about people and just the way they can put together just a speech is just it's intoxicating. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like it's just so I completely just was falling in love with everything about it.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
it's like the honeymoon phase. I would say 2021, I was like a little ball of fire.
Which is amazing. I'm sure you probably have some of your best moments, like your favorite memories from that year from the business. I feel like everybody has like at least one major function that was like the greatest time of your life. Like if I could go back and relive my very first, like I would say my first spring leadership when that was my first one. We all drove the miles together. We were all the same age. Like everyone was like joking around. It was the fucking best time of my life. Obviously, it was not the greatest decision, but there
Right.
were some really high highs in the business. And obviously, now those are probably some red flags looking back. But what was it that kind of brought your honeymoon phase to become more of like a questioning phase?
That was a long time because I mean, one of the good things that came out of Worldwide was the personal development on my side because I did become like a nicer person as well. I became friendlier. I had less road rage. All of a sudden, I wasn't like acting crazy on the road, and I actually was trying to re-pursue my faith right before I even got introduced to Worldwide. So then with and the one good thing I'll say is they never pushed their faith on me. They just were open that they were Christians, right? And so I thought, wow, like look at the way they lead their lives, and I just felt further inspired to pursue my faith again.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and I don't know, girl, I don't know what this is about, but like, so, because I'm Catholic. So I had this moment in church. It was a Sunday night mass, February 2021. And I go to mass totally fine, but this is the first 2 months of me really trying to pump the business. And, the rejection was hurting real hard. It was hurting at first because I had no resiliency towards it or no like desensitization. So I
Yeah.
would like fall in love with these prospects, like these like, younger girls who I was like, oh my gosh, like they're gonna be like the next, like I just like would just see their future because I really
Yeah.
cared. And like, again, like I actually was taking my dream of being a couples therapist and putting it into this business as this is how I'm gonna impact people. And I'm gonna eventually like find couples to like lead and impact. And it's gonna be way more impactful than couples therapy would have been. So this is like what I created. So I really had good intentions with the business. And so, I got knocked down a bunch 2 months in and I'm at mass. And for the first time, I still believe that it was God. Like for the first time in my life, I felt like we were actually having a conversation.
Yeah.
Felt so real. And I'm like, I'm kneeling on the pews and I just like start bawling my eyes out. Like, not loud, not annoying for anyone else, but if you looked at me, you would have been like, oh my gosh, like she might have lost somebody. Like you would have thought something was really wrong in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm just like it's just so hard. I'm talking to Jesus, like it's just so hard. Like I don't know what I'm doing. Like I don't think people understand me. And like I have something really beautiful and they don't see it. And all I believe that I heard God say was, Sydney, like you got to get back up. There's people I need you to meet. And I don't know why he said that or why I perceived him to be saying that to me. I don't know if maybe it was like one of those things where it's like everything happens for a reason. And eventually, like if you don't continue on maybe with this and I can't get you to somewhere else, like it could have been that. But at the time, I really felt like he was saying, this is your calling. Like this is what that's how I perceived it. And
Oh,
then,
yeah.
yeah, it was like a whole thing where I'm like, why am I crying? You died on the cross. And he's like, so don't compare my suffering to your suffering. I love you, but you need to get back up. Like, it was like, I felt like it was a mixture of like, I love you, but also a little tough love.
Yeah.
So I took that as like, I got to keep going. And also, when I started the business, one thing I told myself was I can't quit because I felt like I was a quitter my whole life.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So I decided like, I can't quit. So I dug my heels in really deep no matter what storm came, I would just like try to like stay still. Anyways, I keep trying to build. I moved to Arizona in October of 2021 because COVID was settling down and I wanted to figure out where I wanted to be. And I just had a good
Yeah.
feeling about Arizona, that good feeling was correct because I'm really happy I came here. But then that came with a whole bunch of different struggles, I would say. Like, I actually was really freaked out by building here now. People didn't know what Worldwide was where I was from. People weren't really getting prospected so much where I was from, but at least in my head is what I believe. I came out here and people knew about this business. People had already been like, prospected and all that. So I was so freaked out. But I still went. I mean, I didn't really stop being serious about the business until the fall of 2023. So I still was like on and off for like, not on and off, but I would say on and off in intensity. But I was still very serious about this business for another 2 years after I moved here. The crazy stuff that I
Wow.
would do.
But I get it. I really do. When you say like you get to a place where everybody and their parents have been prospected, that's how it felt in Portland as well. Like
No, I bet
I
I would be so scared to build there. I
It
feel
was
like,
horrible. Everybody knew. It was always like, oh, I had three people just come up to me today and say like the same thing. I'm like, oh, weird. Bye. Like it got weird and awkward. And like I didn't realize how big it is here. Shout out Arizona. But like I didn't realize how big it was here until I spoke with people who either moved here because of the business or who had moved here and then joined the business. And everyone was like, yeah, like everybody knows about it here. I moved here to get away from it. And I'm still waiting to be prospected. So if you're out there and you hear this, prospect me, please.
I
I
know,
want to be
I'm waiting for
prospected.
it. I'm waiting for it.
I hear Queen Creek is like where it's at. I hear like that's where everybody is, or Gilbert. Like I've been told like that if you want to get prospected, just go stand somewhere in Gilbert and someone will get you. So I'm still waiting to make that happen. But it's a whole different animal when you're going places and then it's like, oh yeah, I've heard of that. Oh yeah. Okay. Like how did you handle that when you started to hear people who were like, oh, I've heard of that thing?
Well, one guy was actually really nice to me about it. But he was like, "Is that thing with like the quadrants?" And he was like, really like he was like a yogi kind of guy, so really chill and calm. But this was like my first 2 weeks living in Arizona, and I'm like, "Yeah." And like if someone like just asked me straight out, I would be upfront, like, "Yes, I'm gonna save you." But I remember him like, "Oh yeah, like I mean, I would say about like 80+% of people here already, have been exposed to this before." I don't know where he made up that statistic, right? And my upline tried to like console me with like, where do you get that number, Sid? Gwen, where do you get that number? But yeah, like I was like so freaked out for like 3 months. I was paralyzed and like wouldn't prospect, and then I finally got back out there. But like the people I would try to prospect at first were like bottom feeders, like college kids, because I wasn't scared of them so much.
Yeah.
It's like you're not going to get anywhere with them. So I definitely towards the end tried to like go for the more like the sharper people, but I was so freaking scared because in my subconscious I didn't feel like this was truly like something to be taken seriously. So I'm like, I could never like have that conviction.
Yeah. Which is it's so true.
Yeah. And then I think you were asking about when did it kind of, I guess, like the honeymoon thing phase or the honeymoon phase. And it wasn't like it ever, like, I don't know. Bad things would happen or not so good things would happen, but I would try to like reconcile it in my head.
Yeah.
So Brandon was the one, he mentored me from 2022 for a year. So till like around the time I moved to Arizona, because he really was bad with answering Kate's. And I was like trying to get coach. So I asked his upline, Bob and Debbie, they're an older couple. And I asked them if they would be open to mentor me, and I tried to be polite about it. Like I just need a little bit more coaching. I think Brandon's really busy. I just tried to like be nice about it, and so they agreed because I started like mentoring with like both of them at the same time, just like whoever would answer my questions. Their upline, the boss lady, who's Connie, she said, "Hey, look, Debbie, like you focus on mentoring Gwen now." So I started mentoring with Debbie, but she has a whole different personality from how she likes to mentor, and she's very like, she gets mad about every little thing. It's freaking annoying. So if I would like once in a while, I would still want to ask a question to Brandon if I felt like he was well versed in a certain area.
Yeah.
Like if I met someone who's in a certain industry. If I know Brandon knows a lot about that topic, then I want to go to him. And so if I did, let's say now I go back to Kate and I'm like, "Hey, I want to get your thoughts because so I had this meeting with a prospect and I was asking Brandon about it because Brandon, you know, he's got a lot of experience in that field. And then she would just send me a snarky Kate back, like, Sid, Gwen, who are you Kating? Like, who are you coaching with? Is it me or is it Brandon? Because if you want to change your mind and go with Brandon, that's fine. But you just let me know what you want to do first, okay? I'm just like,
What?
I remember being like, what do you mean? I want to coach with you, but I have a relationship that I built with Brandon for the past year, and then it was just a whole thing like you can't do that. So I'm like, okay, like, geez, fine.
Wow.
So yeah, or like if I went on, let's say I went on one of their virtual board plans, but then I signed off early, like she would text me and be like, "Did you sign off?" And I
Oh
wasn't
my
used
God.
to that because Brandon was like really chill, like wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it's also because like Brandon his business was pumping more and he had more people coming to his board plans because he was better at them. And so I feel like they got like Debbie would get her nose twisted, like, I don't know, just so easily about things. So I try to like brush that stuff off, you know, like it's not a big deal. And then one time she got really mad at me because she felt like I guess she still was hung up on me asking different people questions, even though it was on my upline. But anyways, so she sends a Kate to Connie complaining about me, but she accidentally sent it to me.
Oh gosh. No.
And I was really hurt by it. And so I was I was really
Yeah.
upset. And so I answered back and I think I was just like, hey, like I heard your Kate about me and I'm really sorry. I'm like apologizing. And I was like going back and forth and she's just like not apologizing to me. Just being like, and I was like, I think I'm gonna take a couple days and give you space, Deb, and let's just give you some space. And then I think 3 days later, I actually already had been planning to go to San Diego for a regional. I wanted to like be around my upline, I remember her husband, Bob, was like, good job, like, not letting that get in the way of things, not letting that get in the way of your dream. And I was like, of course, like, I'm not going to let one little silly, whatever, misunderstanding or whatever you want to call it get in the way of my business. But it's just like, I remember just bringing up to her, like, Deb, like, I heard what you said. I'm not sure if that's clear. And she was just like, I know you've made that very clear. And I just thought to myself, like, why can't I get an apology? And so that always kind of bothered me. And maybe that's my problem, but I just like didn't understand why she couldn't just apologize. And then I would say other red flags coming up, like the subtle, what was it? Like the subtle, like comments or like that you need to be doing more with you need to be spending more on ditto.
Oh yeah. Ugh.
She would make subtle comments to me about that, like if she felt like on my council she didn't look like it was enough, and then I try to like explain, well, it's because like I actually put some of my order on my roommate's account so that it would be VCS, which is actually not good because that's like you're finagling the system.
Right.
I didn't really know better, but like just having to always explain things. I actually got a financial advisor while I was living out here, and he was suggesting, what if we do a Zoom call with your mentors? It sounds like they speak into your financial life a lot, and we could all do a call together so that you could feel good about having us both helping you make a decision.
Oh.
And my mentors were all like, absolutely not. They were like, if anything, upset that I had a financial advisor, like offended by it.
Goes to show who they
Right.
really are and how much they're probably struggling financially.
Like that's like a power, yeah, like you're trying to take control of my life in areas where you've no business.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I would say that. And then like there was a time like last summer I was like going through something, not doing really well, and like I went to family reunion, and like just to top it all off, I ended up falling in the shower. I was dead sober, mind you. It was like 9 a.m. and I just like went from like my foot to like my back, just like completely slipped and just
Oh gosh.
felt so hard that I actually like really hurt myself. And so I was like kind of down out about that. And I just like basically I fell off my game with core. And I'm just like, I felt very shameful about it. Like I always felt super shameful about anytime I fell off. It was just like so. And so I get on a call with Bob and Debbie, and I end up getting very emotional because they're like, let's see what do let's get into everything. And of course I gotta share my whole life with them, which is like I shouldn't have had to feel that I needed to. But again, I'm trying to be coachable, and Worldwide says you need to share everything in your life with your mentor. So I'm just sharing everything. And to Bob's credit, he was very kind and very sat with me and my feelings, was very sweet. Debbie was like stone cold, like no more. It looked like the fact that I even had tears, it looked like she was annoyed by my tears, like frustrated and annoyed. And then she just looks at me and she goes, so are you going to be court tomorrow or what? You know
Oh
what?
my God.
Yeah, like just no regard for like the fact that I'm just kind of going through it right now. And so I remember just being like I'm, I'm gonna try. It's gonna happen soon. Like I'm working on it. I'm working on getting certain, building core up slowly. I just don't know if it'll be like full core tomorrow. She was like, that means no. Like you're not. And I still think about that, and I'm just like, how did she not get off that call and think to herself, maybe that was not appropriate?
Right.
And I hope that Bob at least like talked to her after that. Like you're being too like hardcore with, and even like downline that I had more than one downline when they first got to know her, like got to know Debbie, like they would come to me and they used the same word, different people. They were just like, she's a little cold, like Debbie's a little cold. And I would try to
Wow.
defend her and be like, no, she's so amazing. Like once you get to know her, I know it's so funny. She kind of comes off the way at first, but that's not her. I would just defend because even I remember like, being in functions and sometimes the speakers would talk about if you feel like your upline's not for you or you don't connect well and how that's a you problem and you need to humble yourself. And I kind of took that in as like, okay, I need to honor her more. I need to find what's good about her. I need to be a better Christian and forgive the things that maybe did not feel good from her.
Right.
She's not perfect. No one's perfect. Like I kind of took that as a call to be better as a Christian, I guess, to just, try to lean into her more. But I could never fully I feel like I could never really fully respect them. Like trying to edify them, it felt really just disingenuous. And I feel bad
Yeah.
saying that even now. Danny, like I feel bad because if they heard that, I wouldn't want them to even be hurt by that. But I just
Yeah.
couldn't, I didn't take them as success ever. I never really felt like they were successful. Like I never saw them launch anybody. Their board plans were not very good. They never really could get people even on them.
I don't blame you. Debbie was a bitch. Like, how do you respect someone who's so like mean?
Yeah. And so then when I actually ended up meeting my husband, which was me and my husband fell in love really fast, the whole thing. But so this was like beginning of fall, end of summer. And so I decided like I was so scared to tell her about him because I was, I knew that anytime, if I wanted, like even with like the beginning of 2023, when I made a little mini vision board on my fridge, and mind you, like I'm 33 now. So, beginning of 2023, I'm about to be 32. And so, like, I grew a lot. To Worldwide's credit, maybe they helped me a little bit with growth and like figure out what I actually wanted in life. But I knew that I was in a place where I was ready to like meet the person I was going to be with. And I felt that I had a deeper understanding of what marriage really was. And it was a little bit to Worldwide's credit, maybe, and a lot to the faith-based community that I created in Arizona for myself.
Yeah.
And so on my vision board, I put this picture of a happy couple on their wedding day laughing. And because that was part of my dream was to meet the person I was going to marry.
Yeah.
And I shared that with her at the beginning of 2023. And she was like I shared it on a Kate. And like, I was so excited to share my little dreams with my upline, like all like, yay. And then when I get on my next counsel session with her, she was like, I think you need to take that down.
What?
And I was like, why? And she goes, well, I just feel like if that is what you're seeing every day, that's what you're going to focus on. And so I'm like, but that's my dream. So then she
Right.
pauses because I think that was kind of, she's probably thinking, ooh, I don't want to kick down a dream. We always talk about dreams. But she's like, okay, Gwen, what do you want? Do you want to get married or you want to build a business? And I'm over here like, both. That's personal life goals. Business is business. But what do you mean? Like, why do I have to choose?
So you couldn't choose. I thought you had to have a man to build a business.
They would try to say things like, wait till you go double legal Ruby. And it's like, that could not
Hated that.
happen. And then how would you feel if I listened to you and then all of a sudden now it's 10 years later and I'm 42. And
Yeah.
now my opportunity to maybe have children is like coming to an end now because I listened to you. And I'm still not
Yeah.
double legal Ruby. Like that's just dangerous advice. To
Yes.
tell someone to put off a big dream like that. And I've heard from other people since who have gone that like they'll coach, and that same couple will have told young couples, no, don't have kids yet. Wait till you go platinum, blah, blah, blah. And luckily that couple didn't listen and they did actually end up getting pregnant, I guess. And they wanted to start their freaking family. And
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
scariest part about Worldwide is they actually push you back from like hitting milestones in your life. And if you
Yes.
don't invest into your 401k and you don't buy a home, and like you're wasting all this money on your friggin' ditto, and like you're not having children when you want to, or getting married when you like, it's, and you're not taking trips with your family ever. Like I was supposed to be my sponsor, my nephew's sponsor for his confirmation in the Catholic Church. And
Oh,
I listened to my mentors because I asked them what they thought about me going back to New York. And they were like, I don't think this is a good time for you. Like it's gonna
what?
take you back. Yeah. And it's like I'll never get to like fix that. I'll never get to, which
Yeah.
I take responsibility. I made that decision ultimately on my own, like to listen to them. But it's like I wish I could have done that, you know? But
Yeah. It's a big deal.
anyways, yeah, so I'm jumping around, but like fast forward, to like beginning of fall 2023. Now I meet my husband, and we realized pretty quickly like that we just felt we had a strong inkling like we're each other's one, because I joined a group called BNI last fall, which is, it stands for Business Networking International, not an MLM. They are incredible. They have chapters actually internationally, so they're for anyone who's in business that wants to meet other people in their city, and then basically like you build referrals that way. Like you could be anything from a chiropractor to a plumber to someone like me. So I actually joined the chapter to represent Neutralite and build a customer base with Neutralite, which has been actually very good for me. And I still do have my little Neutralite business with BNI. But that was actually how I met my husband, because he represents his business through it. And then I got really close with an older lady in the group that was a health coach, and trusted her a lot. Like I kind of looked at her as like a mom figure, and she had already known my husband for a number of years, right? So when I confided in her, I told her about like he and I. She was so happy. Like she was like, Glenn, like he's such a great person. Do you even know? Do you even know what he's done for his family? Do you even, she's just like so happy. This is just makes me so happy to hear this, like, because you both are great people. And so she just basically gave me the blessing, like, he's a good man.
Yeah.
And I've trusted her that like she cared about me, and if she had a concern, she probably would have brought that to my attention of like, oh, I don't know
Yeah.
about him, right? So I go on the call with Debbie actually later that day and have a counsel session. Tell myself I gotta tell her that I'm dating someone, because I don't want to. I feel wrong hiding it, because I gotta tell
Yeah.
her everything about my life. I tell her about him, my husband, and I tell her about the conversation I had with the other lady in BNI and how she gave me like the blessing. And I told her that because I thought that would give Debbie peace of mind. It's like, oh, good, like an older woman who's kind of a maternal figure for Gwen is saying that this is a good guy and that she's known him for a couple years. So that makes me feel better as her mentor, just to hear that, right?
Right.
I thought that's how she would take it, but she was just basically insulted and was like, she took it
Right.
as like, you're letting this other woman speak into your life. And she was just like, she's like, it just sounds like you have a lot of voices in your life. You have this woman from BNI speaking into your life. You have a financial advisor speaking into your life. Like you just got all these voices, and you just kind of have to figure out like, what voice are you wanting to listen to? Which obviously she's trying to tell me you should only be listening to my voice. So from that point on, I pretty much like started distancing myself like slowly from it.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is such a lame thing to say, because I've been brought up to be the type of like, I don't know, my mom is very like strong woman. So I think I was brought up like to believe like you don't do anything for a man, or like, I don't know, a man should not be the most important thing to you. But I guess for me, if I'm being honest, like my strongest dream that I couldn't fight was that I did want to meet my husband. And then I met this person, and I realized how not important this business was to me, I guess.
Yeah.
And kudos to him, because he did try to like kind of like ask me questions about this, like, oh, like how come you have to pay your mentors? Because I have mentors, but I don't pay them. And I was like, I don't pay them. Like the apps, like they pay for the apps too. We all pay for the apps. That's just for worldwide so that they can pay employees. He's like, I don't know, just question that. Or like when he knew I was spending $700 a month on my ditto, he was just like, what's all this going towards? Like, and he wouldn't be super aggressive. He'd just ask, and I would
Yeah.
defend, and he'd be like, all right. And I remember him like saying things like, I really like that couples idea. Like you talked about, like you wanted to be a couples therapist, and I just want to say I like that idea. And and I would at first be defend it and be like, well, I can help couples further and worldwide. That's why I'm doing this. And
Yeah.
slowly I just started to like fade away from it because I actually did start working this past year in a mental health role again. And so with children, not with couples, but I just like started to come back to this idea of, you know what, you can go back into social work, you can become a couples therapist, and you can create your own practice. And you don't have to, you can create your own practice, you don't need to do a 9 to 5 if you don't like it. You can do a part-time business, you could do a virtual or maybe a half virtual business. You can like create something that fits for your life. It doesn't have to be this average life that you were afraid of. And I think I started to realize
Yeah.
that yeah, going back to my original plan doesn't mean I'm have to be average, which I just didn't realize a couple years ago. I guess you live and you
Yeah.
learn. And again, like I mean, when we were engaged, he would just be like, "Why do you still have those apps? Are you using those apps?" And I'm like, "Sometimes." And I had all this guilt about leaving because I didn't want to feel like I was quitting because I told myself I wouldn't. And then I did have a downline who's a really good friend of mine and her fiance, and I felt like I was letting them down by quitting. And I don't know, it took me a long time to finally in May be like, I'm canceling these apps. Like I don't need it.
Yeah.
I can just focus on my, he's like, then just focus on Nutrilite. He's like, I have no, there's nothing wrong with you focusing on the supplements if you think they're good supplements. Like, work it in BNI and like build your client base. But he's like, you could do that on the side, if anything. And then, like, and I'm pregnant right now, so I'm not gonna work for a couple months like in my mental health field. But he's like, and then when you're ready to go back, go back. But you don't like, and I don't know. And then finally when I started to realize, I know what's crazy. Wait, can I just bring up this one thing, Danny?
No, you're good.
My husband and I did marriage prep. And so in we had this one given session with the pastor and the pastor's wife. And that week was actually the week that I started like actually looking into like researching worldwide, like the truth. And it all started with on YouTube, this thing came up. It just came up and it was a TED talk on cults. And this woman was in Nexium.
Oh,
And
yes.
he
Love
talked
that.
about how to like pinpoint if something could be a cult. A lot of the things about worldwide did pop up in that. So then I started digging, and that was when I started to realize this ain't good. Like worldwide
Yeah.
this is not good. Like I just started like the scales like came from my eyes. So then that same week we're in a marriage prep session with the pastor, and the pastor somehow he brings up MLMs. And I don't know why he did. He just went like, one thing I just really don't like are like MLMs. Like, you know what that is? Multi-level marketing. He goes, specifically Amway. And I'll tell you what this did to a certain couple. And he's telling, and
What?
I'm starting to feel like hot, like nervous because I haven't even told my fiance yet what I've been uncovering. So he doesn't I've been just doing this on my own in silence. And so I'm like, what is my
Oh,
fiance thinking right now? Because he knows I have an Amway business and this guy's straight trash talking Amway. And like, so eventually I finally get to say to the pastor, hey, so I actually like have an Amway business. And then I see him go, like the pastor gets like immediately like he feels embarrassed. I'm like, but no, it's okay. It's okay. Because I've been realizing that it's not good. Like
wow.
there's a lot of, I was like, I really like a certain product line in Amway, that the supplements, and I'm good with like marketing them and just like creating clients. But I was like, I just told him I'm realizing like the whole picture of it's not. And so I'm like, I agree with what you're saying. And so he's like, okay, like, yeah, but it was just so like funny how that all happened. And then my fiance looks at me and goes, wait, what? It's not, you don't think it's good? And I was like, we'll talk. Like, but yeah, I don't know, I just started slowly uncovering and doing research. And then the more research you do, the more friggin' stupid you feel, that you're like, how did I not know this? How did I not put two and two together? How did I not just uncover this info was here all along? And it's just so crazy how your subconscious tries to tell you. Because I remember when I would text people and like I would try to text the word anyway, and sometimes my phone would actually put Amway, and I would actually get like a nervous like negative feeling like pop up in my body when the word Amway would pop
Wow.
up. And I knew that, and I thought to myself like, maybe I thought it was like a bad thing, like your subconscious thinks it's bad, but it's not bad. You were trying to fight your gut on this the whole time.
Yeah, definitely. I love that your pastor mentioned that though. I don't I just feel like it's such a full circle moment just because when you were talking earlier about, your experience in church and how you had to talk to more people and that's how you perceived it. I'm over here like you needed to talk to this pastor who you needed to talk to in addition to meeting your husband. Like it's just so interesting, but I'm also really glad that there was that like I just wonder how many other couples have been sitting with their pastors that are not in relation to worldwide with whatever church that they're a part of, and that these pastors know what's going on. They're like, there's no
Mm,
way that it's not like
right.
really common. And I'm glad that he brought that up to you guys. And I hope that he brings it up to like
More
every other couple that
people.
he talks to.
Right. But yes, like you're right. Like I guess to me, because I always try to look for how everything happens for a reason. And in part, I'm like, if I wasn't in Worldwide, the good things that came out of it was I actually made a lot of friends because of it. Because throughout my journey of prospecting, there were people that I would, engage in conversation with that maybe I realized through talking to them more that they didn't have any need, want, or desire. So I would never prospect them, but I felt a connection to them. So then I ended up becoming very good friends.
Yeah.
So like I have so many friends in this city that I've only lived in for like not even 3 years yet. Like I have an abnormal amount of connections because of my willingness to try to go out there and be core and meet people. So I'm like, that's a good thing. And that was sort of how I ended up even like meeting my husband because I was in a Starbucks one day and this really sharp, it wasn't my husband, but a really sharp looking man walks in and he's walking kind of near a bunch of other sharp looking men and they all have lanyards. And I'm at like the community table at Starbucks and I just said something to him. I made a joke like, oh, you guys all on your lunch break together today? And then the guy is like, what? And I was like, I'm just making a joke. Like, it looks like you guys are all on your lunch break together. And he's like, I don't even know them. And so then we end up laughing it off like, oh, haha, I thought you were with them because you're wearing a lanyard and they kind of dress like you. So he's like, no, but, and then he ends up being a very friendly kind of man. So he's like, but I'm so-and-so, what's your name? And I'm like, oh, I'm Gwen. He's like, oh, Gwen, you from, and you would have thought maybe he was in Worldwide for a second because he was just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
where are you from? What do you do? And so I told him about my little business. And he's like, very interesting. Like, I'd love to learn more about that and see if maybe there's a good connection I can make for you. But it turns out he was wanting to tell me about BNI.
Oh, wow.
And so I end up being like, hey, and I, because of Worldwide, I was like, I'll make an appointment with you, but bring your wife. And I also thought maybe I could prospect him, but I didn't know. But he brings a female associate, not his wife, but because he's also in like the life insurance world. So I just ended up telling about the business and they actually were very like nice and kind. They didn't say anything negative about my little MLM or nothing. They're just positive. And he was like,
Yeah.
look, I think, BNI can really help you. And I was like, I never heard of BNI in my life, but okay. And so yeah, he invited me to a chapter and then that if I didn't go, and if I didn't go to the chapter that he told me to go to, I would have never met my husband. So it's like,
Wow.
yeah, and it's all because I was willing to like open my mouth and make conversation. And it's funny too because my upline told me don't join. Like
Appreciate it.
it's not, you don't need to be doing that. You're gonna have to because there is a fee that you have to pay to be in BNI for the year. But honestly, like as long as you act like they have little steps too that you should do and that you want to do if you want to maintain your seat in the chapter, but they're not hard to do. They actually work. You actually will be ROI positive. Like your business will actually explode if you actually do it. It actually worked. And they were, no, and then I remember like Bob being like, you're probably like not even going to make any money. And like, yeah, that's actually kind of like a pyramid scheme because they make money when you sign up. Not true. Not true at all. Like the person that like sponsors you, if you will, or invites you to BNI does not make money when you sign up. There's no like, you people sign up under you. No one, you don't make money off people's businesses when they make money through BNI. Like that's not how it works at all. So it's just like, that was just, it's so annoying to even think about that in hindsight because it's like, no, you're sick of people saying you're in a pyramid scheme. So you're projecting and wanting to say that BNI,
Right.
which is not effing true. And if you even look up BNI right now or go on YouTube, you're going to see basically all positive things. But anyways, if I could say like some silver lining, like I would say that is one of them, that it is good that when you can put yourself out there and actually talk to people, it's a good thing.
Right. I bet the fee too is probably less than a year's worth of Ditto. For some reason, it just feels like it's probably
It's
like
like
way less than Ditto.
it's like 800 something for the year.
That's way less than a year's worth of
And
Ditto.
Yeah. And I believe I never like thought about quitting or like stepping away, but I'm pretty sure if you do step away, I think you do get your prorated back of what you didn't, however many months like you didn't end up staying for the year. So
Wow. I mean, hey, this sounds like a much better environment for kind of everything that you were looking for, just not worldwide. And these people aren't trying to like control your entire life.
oh
And
no.
I love that for you. I really do. Because I mean, one, you met your husband, which is amazing. It sounds like this whole thing kind of like in a way got you out of Worldwide. Finding this whole situation with BNI, finding your husband, and this pastor who knows how bad Amway is. Like, I love that it all kind of brought you out, but in such a positive way. That's amazing. I love that. And it's really not all that often that I hear that people left and they didn't leave in turmoil. Some people leave in absolute
Yeah,
turmoil and some
no,
people
it's sad.
don't.
Yeah, I feel bad like when I hear those stories. I'm like, I guess I should consider myself lucky, like, because I take responsibility. Like, it's not like it's Worldwide's fault that I'm not further along in my actual career. Like, I made that choice. I don't know what would have went differently if Worldwide didn't come about. I don't know how that would have changed anything. Yeah, like and I could have gotten actually out of debt by now with how much I spent on Ditto. I could have gotten out of my student loan debt, but luckily I didn't get myself into deeper debt because I was pretty good with my money, and I worked my butt off like to be able to maintain the Ditto. So it could have been way, way worse. And I mean, I could have had a way more maybe toxic upline than I did. And we never even mentioned this, but I was like her mentor when she got in the 90s was the Italian diamond couple.
Oh wow, they are the OGs.
Yeah, so I still to this day, like I don't know if I could believe that not a good person because she was always seemed the most level-headed when you did ask her for perspective on things.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really hard to even like I'm not in a place yet where I could believe that everybody's bad, like all
Sure.
the
Yeah.
leaders. And I know I've heard you say, "Oh no, I think they," all, but I'm like. I don't know if I could believe that she is though. Like that is really, maybe she's just heavily indoctrinated and like
Oh, absolutely. That's totally fair.
so even like the diamonds, like I don't know if you remember the diamonds from San Diego, the personal trainers.
Yes.
Like that guy, so like he just seems like he's got so much love in his eyes. I'm like, man, it's hard to believe that he could be bad because he just seems like such a sweet guy, but I've never spoken to him, so I don't know.
And understand that like I didn't feel the way that I did until like begin end of last year, beginning of this year. Just and that's a result of hearing so many different stories. I feel like at this point I'm jaded. I've heard so
Many bad
many
stories.
just yeah, but I felt the same way that you did for a long time, where it was like, there's got to be some people, and I still struggle with that. Where we had this conversation before we started recording, where it's like, it's just there's some people who probably struggle with their moral values and staying in, and what's their motivation, and it really just comes down to a lot of people are just still so heavily, heavily indoctrinated, and they really do think that they're doing the Lord's work. They're doing
I
such
thought
a
it
good thing.
was, yeah.
Absolutely. And now that you're out, like you're totally out, like what is life like for you now?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm allowed to just relax. My
I
life
love
has
that.
slowed down a lot because I was working in a school this year. And so, like, it's summer. So I just work, like, I do my neutral light business and then I work at a restaurant a couple nights a week, but it's summer in Arizona. So, like, you don't get as many shifts anyway. So
Right.
I'm just like kind of I'm 7 months pregnant, so I'm like getting ready for baby. And I spent most of my day at home today. I had my BNI meeting this morning, actually, because we have them on Tuesday mornings. I had my BNI meeting. I had a meeting with someone in the chapter after to like see how I could help him with business and refer him, and vice versa. And then I went to Target, and then I came home and I cleaned, and I just handled things on my to-do list. Like it's okay. I can
Wow.
just be home if I want to be home, and like
Wow.
it's like that simple. And I'm allowed to listen to what I want to listen to. I wish that I was reading every day. I'm not reading every day, but I need to get back on that because I think that was a good habit. But I think one thing too is like I have opened up to my husband about this whole experience, but I haven't opened up to my friends or my family because I'm still like embarrassed about how dumb it all was. And I'm lucky that I didn't lose any friends. But honestly, I have two good friends who luckily the relationship is now repairing back. But I know that it strained their relationship with them.
Yeah.
And at the time I just thought they don't understand and like whatever. And maybe to a degree they did not, or maybe there were times where they didn't need to be so mad about something, but I get where they were concerned. And like my best friend from childhood, we moved out to San Diego together and she's still there. And I never visited her while I was living in Arizona once. I never once flew or drove out to San Diego, which is not far, just to like spend, I don't know, a weekend with her.
Yeah.
And I'm finally doing it in a couple weeks, like just to go visit
Hey.
her. it was for worldwide. It wasn't for her. So I could tell that hurt her, that
Yeah.
I wasn't prioritizing time with her also.
Right. Right.
So I feel bad for that. And I still need to like take time to have that conversation with her of like, hey, I'm sorry I made you feel like that. I'm sorry that I never made time to visit you while I was in San
Right.
Diego because I was too busy building my like stupid non-existent business. And that's a big reason why I'm like, I need to make sure I visit her before the baby comes, because she's important to me and she's never made me feel like I wasn't important to her. And like, that's
Yeah.
the least I could do is go out to visit her for a weekend, and just do normal things. Like, you shouldn't have to feel bad about taking a trip. If a business works, whether, if and you're doing what you need to do on normal work hours, like you're building a life insurance business or you're building, I don't know, you name it, like you're building a real estate business or whatever the case may be, like those people can still build and work hard and have downtime and have balance in their life and like go on a trip for a weekend and do normal things. If your business is that ridiculous that you can't do those things, there's something wrong, aka it doesn't work, like, or it won't work.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a journey. And I everything that you're saying I resonate with so much. The embarrassment, the like almost like the hesitation to tell people. And I hope in time you understand and hopefully forgive yourself. Like while it feels so embarrassing, there's a lot of manipulation behind it. I feel like no rational thinking person would do that intentionally. And it's all calculated. It's all done on purpose. It's all by design. And it's not that like any of us got duped. It's that these people are so good at what they do. And it's just
Mm,
a matter of like realizing that. And it's hard to see that too. It's so hard to be like it took me like my partner and I were together for an entire year before I even mentioned it. And then not even after, like, I'm glad I did mention it because he got prospected. And that was a whole fun story to go through. But, it's a journey. But I'm really glad that you were willing to come on here and be so vulnerable and share your story. And even though anonymously, hopefully you can share this with people, like, hey, I may have gone through something similar. You don't know it's me or not, but.
yeah, it'll be interesting when I finally talk to like even my dad about it, just to be like, because I haven't been bringing up the business, so I wonder like what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And they know that I'm going back into mental health. So, but they haven't asked about, hey, what about the business? Because they knew I was so serious.
Right.
I was so serious that I was like showering at the gym just to like have more time in the locker room to prospect. Like, that's friggin' like so embarrassing. Oh my gosh. To willingly shower in the gym is gross. But
Oh, but it just shows your dedication. Now you get to put that dedication to the places that you actually want to.
yeah,
And I think that
it's a
the
good
field
one.
you're going into that you're dedicated to, amazing, especially since Arizona, we need so many more mental health providers. If you're out there, please, please, I need a therapist myself. I'm having a hard time finding one. But it is, that I feel like hopefully you will feel so much more fulfilled, like you're actually doing a good work. I love this community and I love the fact that you were so willing to come on here because I feel like there's so many people who are like you, who who really do have a lot of positives that they've taken away from it, that they've had positive things come from it. And I really do love this perspective too. And I am just so grateful for your time. And is there anything else that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I guess just my reflection is, you know what? There are people even smarter than me that have joined Worldwide. So I do remind myself I'm not really an idiot. So don't think that you're an idiot if you've joined, right? And I don't think that this should make us as people just closed off and not willing to trust people or whatever the case may be. But I think you just have to find that balance of like myself, like I need to swing more and be a little bit more of a skeptic, right? And so no matter how badly, I think, because we are right in that, I've heard this on this podcast a lot, that they tend to target kind of vulnerable people, or if people are in a vulnerable place in their life at the time. So I think just being aware of that, that's my advice to myself. If you're vulnerable at all in a certain area of your life, like just be aware of that and make sure no one takes advantage of that, because that's what happened to me, because I was just
Yeah.
looking for hope so bad. But not every opportunity that comes when you're in that place is from God per se. So just you need to find that balance of trusting people, but also being smart and being skeptical as well, and asking. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like question everything.
Yeah. So valid. So valid. And it's true. I mean, I've seen people who were doctors, nurses. I'm not by any means like the sharpest tool in the shed. I promise you that. I'm not college educated. Like I,
Which means nothing,
I
in my
just,
opinion.
thank you for because sometimes I'm like, oh God, I'm less than. But really, it just so many people from all walks of life have walked into this because they hit some sort of pain point. Nobody is above getting into a cult. They just haven't hit your pain point yet, which is insane. But
No, you're right. No one's above it. A church could be a church can be a cult. Like not like just one church. You just might step into the wrong church. Like yeah, a yoga
yeah,
studio could be a cult. You have to just. I think I'm trying to be more aware of joining communities now because I like communities, right? Like I like my church friends. I have my BNI friends. Like, but I think I just need to be careful about if I want to be a part of the community. Like, don't make the community this one community your whole life.
yeah,
It's like something you can be a part of, but don't make it everything.
right. Yeah, absolutely. If they try to be your everything, you run the opposite direction because they're probably cult
Yes.
leaders.
Yes.
And I would say don't join. But anyways, I am so grateful again so much for your time. If you guys would like to be like Gwen and you want to come on, share as much or as little as you like. Doesn't even have to be Amway related. If it's trauma related, you guys want to have a conversation about mental health, please. You guys can still DM me on Instagram at Exes and T podcast. However, you can also email me. That is DANI at exesandtpodcast.com. And you guys can find me everywhere that podcasts are found. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode.